A few months back, Jay Leno went out on one of his famous jaywalks, I'm sure you've heard about, to find out just how much Americans know about the Electoral College. He asked, "What is the Electoral College?" First response wasn't encouraging. There was a squirming accompanied by the words, "I have no idea." The second response wasn't much better. "Wasn't that in Harry Potter?" Well, thinking he'd better try an easier question, he asked, "Well, how's the President of the United States elected?" To which the snappiest response was, "Our presidents are elected at Bush and Clinton family reunions." With us this evening are two people who know everything there is to know about politics and about how we elect our presidents. And they will be debating the pros and cons of that especially interesting institution, the Electoral College. Now, Gregg will argue in favor of the Electoral College. He is to your right. Dr. Gregg holds the Mitch McConnell Chair in Leadership at the University of Louisville, where he is also director of the Hauenstein Center for Political Leadership. He is the author or editor of 5 books, including The Presidential Republic, Vital Remnants, and Securing Democracy. Burdett Loomis, who is here to your left, will argue against the Electoral College. Dr. Loomis is professor of political science at the University of Kansas. By the way, congratulations for outstanding basketball team this year. He is the former director of the Robert Dole Institute for Public Service and Public Policy, and he is author or editor of more than a dozen books, including Choosing a President, Republic on Trial, and forthcoming a book entitled The First Shots of the Culture Wars. Let's give Dr. Loomis and Dr. Gregg a warm welcome. Let's get right on with the show. Both of our guests agreed beforehand on the format of the debate. Dr. Gregg will speak first on the proposition that the Electoral College has served a historic purpose. Dr. Gregg, you have 10 minutes.
The Electoral College is the stepchild of American politics, I think. I was trying to think of places like the Bill of Rights Institute that you have. You have the President's Study, the Hauenstein Center for Presidential Studies. You've got all kinds of things. You don't have anything for the Electoral College. There's no center for the Electoral College out there. Maybe we'll start that tonight, or maybe we won't, depending on what Dr. Loomis does to me here tonight. What I'm going to argue, however, is that the Electoral College, I think, indeed, has been the cause of much good in American politics and of very little real ill. And we can't ask much more than that. First, let me say what we cannot do. We cannot defend the Electoral College as the founders intended it, because it has not functioned as the founders intended it since the great man George Washington left the scene. Sometimes my side of the argument gets tagged with that, well, you're an old curmudgeon, you just for whatever the founders wanted. The fact is the founders did not want it to function the way it has functioned. But it has functioned, I think, very well. The Electoral College has changed as America has changed. It has evolved as America has evolved. It is democratized as America has democratized. It has changed in very important and profound and I think profitable ways. Let's start by looking at the products of the Electoral College, the outputs. And you're going to hear that from me probably a lot tonight, because I want to focus on the outputs. Most of the opponents of the Electoral College want to focus on the inputs. I want to focus on the outputs. I think that's what we should focus on. At the end of the day, I'm going to ask you this basic question. Can any system that we want to reform is it more likely to give us better presidents? In other words, that's the question, I think, that's most important. So the outputs of those 43 men who have served in the office of president, the Washingtons and the Jeffersons and the Lincolns and the Jacksons and the Trumans and the Roosevelts and the Reagans, and you name whoever your favorite president is, they are in some degree a product of the Electoral College. Every electoral system has its biases. Maybe your favorite president would have been elected anyway in absence of the Electoral College, and maybe they wouldn't have. Without it, everything changes. Under almost any account, I think the results of the Electoral College have been pretty darn good, and those results are something seldom mentioned by the opponents. I will argue tonight that the Electoral College, beyond producing pretty good outputs, has served to support our federal structure that we exist as states. It reinforces the great political institution of the rule of law. We don't give power to people because they are popular. It has been the primary cause, at least the primary support, of the two-party system. It enhances the legitimacy of presidents during very closely contested elections. It has saved us from some pretty big catastrophes, worse catastrophes than we've had in American history. And I'll talk about all those as we go on. And it ensures a broad and representative constituency for our presidential candidates. For my opening remarks, let me just focus in the few moments I have left on that last one, that the Electoral College ensures a rather broad, diverse national constituency for our presidents. Here's how I'll argue it works that way. The Electoral College math exaggerates the representation of smaller, more rural states to a small degree. Not very much, but to a small degree. It does. And it makes presidential candidates contend in places they otherwise would not contend. It makes it less likely, the Electoral College does, that a presidential candidate can win the presidency by appealing to a very narrow band of the electorate concentrated in major population centers. If we just think back to that election in 2000, which I'm sure we're going to hear a lot about tonight. In 2000, Al Gore won the popular vote, right, by about 500 and some thousand votes. He did it by winning counties making up to 580,000 square miles. So Al Gore won 580,000 square miles of counties. George Bush won 2.8 million. That's amazing. Think about. Yes, somebody's already arguing, well, that's because no one lives in Wyoming. That may be true. Nonetheless, Al Gore could take off today. Let's say he was in town. I don't know who he's supporting for the presidency. But let's say he was in Pennsylvania this week for one of the two candidates, or just to throw his own name in, maybe. Al Gore could take off today from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is my old hometown. Could fly from Pittsburgh all the way to Los Angeles and have never flown over a single county he won. Now think about that, from Pittsburgh to Los Angeles. Yes, he won places like Chicago and some urban areas around here and there in different states, but there's a pretty much straight line from Pittsburgh to LA. I don't think this, allowing a presidential candidate to win the presidency on that kind of basis, would do much good for our politics. I think, in fact, would polarize our politics. And I don't think at the end of the day it would be very good to lack this sort of diversity in our constituencies. The Electoral College then serves to encourage candidates to appeal to urban constituencies and rural constituencies and suburban constituencies, to appeal to constituents on the East Coast and the West Coast and the North and the South and all across, if you will, the fruited plain. So I think I'll end there for my opening remarks, and I think there are lots of reasons that the Electoral College has done some wonderful, has had a wonderful impact in American political history, and that's one of them, I think, and we'll discuss some more as we go on.